Welcome to Breaking Good, the officially unofficial podcast for Breaking Bad on AMC. I'm Jim.
And I am Aaron.
And today we're talking about season 204, season 2, episode 4, titled Down. This is another one with an intro that kind of throws you for a loop.
Yeah, another black and white teddy bear snuff film.
Yep, just like the season premiere.
Wrong camera.
Do we have any stuff to talk about up front, or should we get right into the recap?
Well, what'd you think of this episode? Yeah, I got lots of stuff I want to say, but what do you think of this episode?
This is a good episode. If not for the comedy alone, like there's a lot of comedy in this one, but there's also a lot of serious shit going down between Walt and Skylar.
This episode's called Down for a reason, right?
It's a downer.
This is a low. This
Shit's
is like
going down.
This is like the personal nadir of a lot of characters and arcs, especially for Jesse.
Sure, definitely. Walt and Skylar's relationship is more on the rocks now than it's ever been.
Right. It seems like the damage is irreparable.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the damage she's doing to that child, irreparable, with those cigarettes at the end.
That's true. That's true.
We'll talk about that more when we get there. Certainly.
This movie, this serial television episode, Down, was directed by John Dahl, who has a long and storied career in television in Hollywood. For his movies, he directed Rounders, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but that's the one that.
Yeah.
Okay, I was hoping. But
Matt Damon, Ed Norton.
Sure. He check out this Murderers Row television. He's directed since Breaking Bad, The Bridge, The Strain, Ray Donovan, Outlander, Californication, The Americans, Justified, Dexter, Hannibal, Arrow, Homeland, Shameless, Battlestar Galactica, and Caprica. He also managed to squeeze in one episode of Terriers, 4 episodes of True Blood. Just the one episode of Breaking Bad. He's a sampler. He goes to the buffet and he just kind of sees what's there and fills up his plate. Just tons of stuff. Arguably, like
I like that image. The idea of a buffet just covered in scripts.
Yeah.
And he walks down. He's like, "Do I want to shoot? No, let's move over to True Blood. Let me see what's there."
Yeah. That's dessert. That's dessert. You can't fill up on it, but you can't skip it either. Yeah. Is co-written by Vince Gilligan. The Villigan, who I don't think needs an introduction for Breaking Bad fans, and also co-written by Sam Catlin, who really has 13 episodes of Breaking Bad to his name, and a credit on Rake, and that's about it. Some things called Canterbury's Law, which I've never heard of, Kidnapped, The Great New Wonderful, which I think is a pilot episode that didn't get filmed, a couple acting credits. I mean, I feel like, again, there's some shadowy Vince Gilligan connection here that ties this all together and I'm not aware of, because he was all up in Breaking Bad, ended up being a producer and co-executive producer, but that's about it. So
okay, yeah, so it seems like you got some experienced people on the team.
Sure.
Well, at least for the director.
Yeah, well, and Vince Gilligan written a few episodes in his time.
Yeah. All right, should we get into the recap then?
Yeah. What? Cool. So we're watching this. I'm going to take the reins here.
Okay.
This black and white teddy bear snuff film. We see guys in hazmat from the perspective of what it seems like we're being led to believe is the white pool.
I think so. Yeah, it's a swimming pool, and there's certainly a swimming pool in their backyard.
I don't know if you can put yourself back in the mindset of watching this for the first time, but my first thought was,
what the fuck?
Well, my first thought was, oh shit, this is like Walt and Jesse dressed up to cook. Then we see the evidence bags, and I'm thinking, oh, did Walt get so desperate that he cooked in his home and there was an explosion?
Yep.
Like how far the fuck did we flash forward?
Sure.
Kind of like, I was fresh off my experience of season 1, where when you watch the pilot, I thought, oh, well, we're flashing to the end of the series. We're going to work our way back. That's like everything was on the table, and it was just, man, I have no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and I guess for people watching this for the first time, everything still is on the table.
Yeah.
Like, we won't talk about it too much because we know how
we're not going to take anything off the table or put anything on the table until the spoiler section, which honestly, this is probably going to be the most robust spoiler section we've had to date.
Ooh.
Where there's just so many things that love to talk about. I'd love to talk about with virgin eyes, but I can't. So
sure.
Them's the breaks.
All right. Yeah. So we kind of talked about that first scene there. Let's get to the actual episode.
Yeah.
Where Jesse meets Walt at a convenience store. and they kind of talk about their next move. Jesse's surprised that Walt doesn't want to cook yet. He's still waiting for things to settle down. And then Walt gives him a little bit of money, $600 to hold him over until, he can do whatever Jesse's going to do.
Yeah, almost like an allowance.
Yeah.
Like $600 to tide you over. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the beginning. I mean, did that strike you as particularly arrogant when you watched it?
Yeah, I think the first time it did. Yeah. Like he doesn't trust this kid with any more than $600, and he's right not to. Like, look at the rest of the episode. Jesse does end up smoking it all, or shooting it all into his arm. Yeah, he does.
What? I mean
he's got a tray covered in drugs when his mom comes into his bedroom.
Yeah, but he might have just had that. I mean,
I suppose so. But he's out of money again. Like, where did that money go?
Well, that's what I don't know. That he's out of money, except for like, so if I give you $600 and said, here's your living expenses for groceries and whatnot, you're like, okay. If I give you $600 and 4 hours later you're evicted from your apartment with no clothes on your back, that's $600 is not enough to get.
And you owe the guy $2,000 to get your thing out of Hawk.
Yeah, you could honestly say I'm flat fucking broke. I do not have enough money to live. So I think that's kind of I didn't get that Jesse had just went out and went on a drug
binge.
He
doesn't deny. He denies it, but he denies it in that way. Like, no, I didn't. No.
Yeah, you might be right. I think
just the way he says that makes me think.
I kind of took that as like someone saying like, oh, that's a totally reasonable thing for you to be accusing me of, but that's not it this time. Like that thing, like you've ever been busted for doing something that you kind of traditionally do, but that's the self-righteous. This is the one time you can't fucking pin that shit on me.
Sure. No, I took it the other way. Like he's getting defensive because he did really.
Yeah. Oh, the one thing that I thought was the most pulse pounding of the Bear Snuff film footage was where we ended up with, which was in a pair of Walter White style glasses.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the implication of that.
Yeah, what does that mean for Walt? I mean, certainly if there's an explosion at his house, his glasses could go flying into the pool.
And eyeballs and various other accoutrements.
Yep.
Sure.
So not giving anything away on that, but interesting to think about. So then... what do you think of this argument that Jesse's making here, that 50% of Walt's money is his? Because as 50-50 partners in this business that we call Bald Move, there is some kind of expectation that we split money, right?
Yes, sure.
But where does that end? Like, I'm genuinely curious on your
so here's
opinion,
my
our situation.
Here's my take. If we cashed a $5,000 Amazon check or whatever, and it's my job to take it to the bank. I've got this cash money and I'm taking it to the bank, and we've, for whatever reason, you've kept $5,000 because we need that much cash, petty cash laying around. And I'm mugged on the way to the bank, and I come back and you go like, that was your money. We would instantly have a fist fight. It would go down like that. There would be choking. Yeah, no, I'd be pissed beyond rational belief that you'd be like, oh, that's fuck you and your bad luck, man. Like Tuco came to his house, kidnapped him, took his shit. If Tuco went to if Tuco busted into Walt, Walt should just be kissing his ass, lucky stars. I'm mixing my metaphors. I'm so excited about this. If Tuco chose his house to kick in first and beat Walt in front of his family until he gave him his money, where would he be? And then they leisurely drive over to Jesse's house with Walt's face caved in the Aztec.
No, I'm totally with you.
I think, thank God.
Yeah. The moment that money goes into Jesse's possession, it's his. It's his money.
Sure.
Walt got his half. If Jesse loses that half, sorry about you.
Yeah.
Like, and it's cool of Walt, I think, in the end, to give him half of that money.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something I don't think he was morally justified.
You don't think so?
In expecting.
It's not like, so if Jesse just blew that money or lost it in a house fire, I mean, I think if you're 50-50 partners, maybe you should take care of your partner.
Yeah,
but I don't think you, but Tuco is like the act of God that, Jesse gave that money up.
Sure. What I'm saying is like that money, like that's his stash of money, right? Like Walt has nothing to do with that money. Walt couldn't go over and demand any of that money. Walt has no right to any of that money.
Should Jesse have not let the cops take him? Go, oh yeah, that's our money. In fact, it's Walter's money.
No. So that's why. So it is cool of him not to say anything. I mean, he had no choice really, otherwise he was going to jail. But yeah, it's also cool of Walt to say, okay, half of this is going to be yours, because he could have given him another allowance to get him through the next cook.
It did take him choking him half to death, but it was cool that he didn't make him murder him for the money. Yeah, I guess.
Well, I don't know that Walt cared at that point, right?
Well, I mean,
Walt's like, kill me, go ahead.
I understand, I understand why Walt's so excited about it, because he's got this countdown, 737,000.
Yeah.
And what he's risked so far, and how much time does he have? And now this punk went off and lost, and I'm like that much further into the hole. I understand why he had the reaction he did. It's incredible how violent Walt can be emotionally and verbally, and even physically. Like, he was really getting handsy with Jesse here.
Yeah.
When he feels morally entitled to. And that's the thing I took away from this episode, that how Mr. White can get pretty fucking scary in a way that I've not seen Jesse or really anybody else on this show behave.
Yeah. I just think, like, Walt didn't really have a super pertinent reason to give Jesse half of it. Like, I think, it's your fucking partner. You get him through his hard time.
Yeah, and point of fact, he didn't. It was like a 66-33 maybe split. Or
it was pretty close. There was one extra stack, and he's like, fuck it.
Yeah, he had 5 fat stacks. He kept 3, gave just 2. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, he would totally be justified in, like, here's $5,000.
Yeah, this will get you through. Find a place to live. We'll cook more later.
And then we'll talk about making you whole, or if that's something when we're all settled. But, like, yeah, the fact that and the other thing is, Jesse's showing up at his house with the fucking RV.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of reasons why Walt flew off the handle like he did. But
that's a pretty good reason.
It's also one of those things where if he had started taking Jesse seriously from the start, when he called him 3 times in a row and Skylar's out of the house, that was just Walt in a fit of pique, not wanting to talk to him.
Sure.
But what the hell is Jesse supposed to do? Spend another night in the fucking shit
porta
box?
Potty, yeah.
I mean, there were situations that needed Walt's attention, and from Jesse's perspective, I don't give a shit about your wife and kids.
Yeah. You got a life to live, yo.
Yeah, you came to me, yo. So
right.
That's my opinion.
Okay, cool. I think we're basically on the same page there. No problems in the future of Bald Move for that.
No, and if we do choke each other to death, we will turn on the webcams for your entertainment if that would happen. So, all right. And probably by the time we put it on Patreon and then got the hangout going, cooler heads would prevail. That's the thing.
I think so, yeah.
If we got to choke each other to death on camera, that's a 5-minute process minimum. If you got a head of steam and you're going,
save it for the cast.
You fucking saved that chokehold for the cast.
All right. Walt's cooking breakfast for his family, and he is just pretending that everything is fine, that this is the best day he's ever woken up on. Junior leaves for school, and then Walt tries again to explain the second cell phone to Skylar. And she leaves the house in the middle of his explanation.
So I think it's interesting that they began this scene with Skylar in bed.
Okay. Why
she's laying there. She's peaceful. She kind of wakes up and sees Walt gone, and she instantly shifts into panic mode. We can see kind of like the PTSD that she's gotten from this fugue state experiment. And then they go and they show Walt being over the top pancakey.
Oh my God.
Like, he is
this guy.
He's got that thing where he's so fake.
It's so obvious.
And his expectation is for her to immediately feel the man's cooking pancakes. The man's cooking pancakes. He's making omelets. How can you still be angry with him? This situation is over. We need to move on.
Yeah.
Like,
it's only over in Walt's head.
Right. Now, I think it's interesting. So, like, I'm totally on Skylar's side at this point.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting what she then does, which is leave the house to give him a taste of his own medicine. I don't like that.
Why not?
I don't know, because I've never been in this circumstance before, and I've often wondered, like, if you've been in this situation where, say, you've been married for 10 years and there's cheating involved, or you find out that they're leading a double life involving drugs and crime, how do you even... It just seems like you should just get divorced. I know that that's not the easy answer to do.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I don't see how you ever rebuild that trust.
Are you talking about, like, from Walt's perspective? Like, he should just realize that this is over?
No, from Scott, for both, really, but from
because Skylar doesn't really know what's going on yet. She knows something is up, but she has no idea what really.
Because, you know, that's a good point. Like, what if Walt had just gone away with Jesse and cooked and just disappeared and cooked drugs for 6
a
months,
few months and then come
made
back.
a couple $1 million and said, you know, left it behind when he died with a note that said, I worked very hard to make you this money. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but I thought it was more important to provide for your future. It's almost like there's another layer of selfishness where Walt's need to have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
And not face the consequences of his actions, however noble he may view them. And that's what I'm getting this second view is kind of like all the multiple layers of hypocrisy and weird nuances of stuff going on here. But one of the things I'm concentrating on now is like, just what do you do when you have that such a huge breach of trust? And also it's an ongoing one because Skylar knows something's up and that Walt won't say it to her. But it feels like it chafes me in the wrong way. The solution to that is just to play games, which is what this is.
It is like
I don't know what else you do, but this felt very unsatisfying and frustrating to me to watch her be like, well, let's just get engaged in tit for tat.
Yeah, I feel like Walt is, when he sits down on the couch later and he says, let's talk about this, he's partially right. Like, let's talk about it, right? You need, the problem with that is that Walt is refusing to actually talk about what the problem is, but that approach is much better than the idea that I'm just going to give you a taste of your own medicine.
But he's not, but I don't know, from Skylar's perspective, he's not being an honest broker.
I know, yeah. So what else is she left to do? Like, clearly it would be better to sit down and talk about it, but that's not going to happen. And
this is so early in the things, like leaving is just...
It does feel kind of abrupt. Like, there's the suspicion about the second cell phone. There's an overly friendly breakfast, and then immediately she's out the door. That felt a little abrupt to me.
He seems guilty as hell. And also, like, it seems to me that if you do, like, say you're unfaithful to your partner, I don't know what that's like, but say you're unfaithful to your partner, and you both agree that you're going to try to make things work. It feels like there's a certain amount of crow that the offending partner has to eat.
Oh yeah, certainly.
And there has to be, you know, it's a two-way street, that there's some amount of kind of distrust and hurtfulness that you have to put up with the other person as a way to,
you have to rebuild the trust, and that absolutely takes time. There's no way you can do it.
Well, because Walt's
over
on
a breakfast.
Walt's on this clock. It comes across as entirely artificial. Like, I'm going to be super dad for, can I cook meth yet?
Yeah.
You know, and that transparent attempt to like, let's go to a writer's workshop and I'll even go with you. Fully expecting her to be like, oh, you don't have to do that, Walt, but that sounds fun. Okay, I get to cook my meth. I mean, that's the underlying tension that just makes all of this stuff not work and seem insincere. And Skylar's totally right to pick up on that. I just don't know what you do. It's a crazy, crazy situation.
Well, you don't turn down breakfast. I know that much. And Junior takes full advantage of that. He goes gung-ho into that breakfast, apparently.
A little bit of controversy on the breakfast count.
Why's that?
Well, so we had two breakfasts. There was two breakfasts on offer. Before this episode started, the breakfast count stood at 3 breakfasts offered, 4 breakfasts offered, 3 breakfasts consumed by Walt Jr.
Yep.
I'm at 4.6 with an asterisk.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that I would give him that last one.
The New Mexican Christmas style omelets, the red and green chili omelets, were not officially, that offer was not extended.
No, it was not extended to Junior. It was extended to Lewis.
Yes.
And Junior was just kind of on his way out anyway.
Yeah. Like
I don't know if I count that as a breakfast turned down by Junior.
Like if Junior come up there 15 seconds later and been like, breakfast? Maybe things have gone differently, but Lewis is not Walter Jr.
No.
Maybe they had plans to stop and get breakfast on their way to do whatever the hell they're doing.
Maybe he was so concerned with the breakfast he was going to get that he didn't even think about getting breakfast.
Well, Junior could have doubled up and we could have had we could have swollen this count to 6-7. But as it stands, it's 4.6 with an asterisk.
Yeah, I would almost call it 4.5, but since he wasn't offered breakfast, like I would call it 4.5. But if you want to call it 4.6 with...
I'm trying to be
with a footnote because I'm okay with that.
Because the reason I started this is someone, it might have been D, might have been somebody else, accused me of overplaying the Walt Jr.
Just you, not the entirety of the internet.
Well, I think it's a little bit of that, but it's like half the times he's offered breakfast turned down. It's like, okay, I'm going to keep count.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that.
And I'm a little nervous because I got, you know, even with an asterisk, 4 6s, 2/3 of the time. That's not the breakfast consuming monster.
Yeah. It's not the Galactus of breakfast that we thought it was.
You cannot call him the Galactus of breakfast if he's at 4 6 asterisks or no.
All right, let's move on. We're spending far too much time on Junior's breakfast.
If in fact it turns out that Lewis had breakfast planned, would Lewis then be his Silver Surfer? He's out scouring Albuquerque for breakfast.
I don't know enough about the relationship
Walt Jr. can consume
between Galactus and Silver Surfer to
All
comment.
Right, fair enough.
Is this the scene where they? No, it's not. It's later. Never mind.
Okay.
Jesse's parents and their lawyer stop by to tell him that he's being evicted for manufacturing meth in the basement of what we find out is his aunt's house. I don't know if we knew that before. But the parents actually own this house, and he's just kind of given residentiary rights.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like signed in a contract or if that was like a just thing where they said, "Hey, come live here."
This feels this all feels very common law, and we did know it was his aunt that died of cancer. I wasn't sure if it was his great aunt or if it was just his aunt, but yeah, this is his aunt. But no, it feels very much like the deed is always. It feels to me like the deed was transferred over because his mom was probably the executor of the will or whatever. So they got the deed to the house. Yeah. But his aunt verbally promised it to Jesse.
And so they let him live there.
Yeah. But there's also, well, we'll get onto this scene a little bit later because I thought there's an interesting interplay between Jesse and his mom.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit there.
Okay. Skylar gets home and Walt asks where she's been and she doesn't answer. And then there's some awkward conversation in this scene. I mean, Walt doesn't like getting a taste of his own medicine, and he shouldn't. And he should realize that that's what's happening here. I feel like Walt doesn't realize it. He's oblivious.
The medicine takes bad. I cooked breakfast. I fixed the garage door.
Yeah.
What more do you want, woman?
I like everything.
The track was bent. I made it straight. What more can I do?
It's such bullshit. Like, would Walt ever have fixed that garage door if he didn't commit these egregious sins?
Well, he was going to, but then
it's like the hot water heater. That shit hasn't been fixed. He wasn't going to fix the garage door if he hadn't cooked meth.
It's like painting a baby's room. It's like that rail would have gotten straight, but there was a planetarium thing about the Mars rovers.
Laser Floyd.
Yeah, that he was really wanting to go to. So it's crazy. Walt just doesn't see how transparent this is, and I'm shocked by it. Yeah, he's a very smart man, but he's just desperate.
Yeah,
the desperation to get back to his plan is blinding him to the danger that he's in.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. So one of the things I want to talk about is the parallel structure showing Jesse's consequences of being an addict, which everyone thinks is quite justified, and Walt's being an addict and his behavior. Like he needs his fix. He needs that high. He needs to get on with his plan. And he's willing to rush because all he can see is that. Just like, your friend wanting to borrow $50 from you so they can go buy heroin. Doesn't realize how sweaty and desperate and unbelievable their story. Like this is the best story in the world they've worked out in their head, man. They got a job interview and place. They want you to wear a shirt and tie, and I just got these jeans and t-shirt, man. $50, JCPenney, I could get that shirt and tie. You want me to help me clean my life up, right? And it's like, what the hell, man? What the hell?
Yeah.
Your gums are bleeding, your teeth are falling out. You haven't slept in 3 days. You got track marks on your arm. I don't think you're going to get a job in an office.
Yeah.
One. But no, I think that's interesting that they've set this up to show Jesse at the end of this terminal relationship with these people that unconditionally, or you presume unconditionally loved. I don't know. They're also kind of weird, middle class, uptight about this stuff too. But
no, I definitely want to talk about that because, and especially in this next scene where Jesse wakes up in his house and his mom's there and they're moving all of his shit out. That you can tell that there is a long history with Jesse of him fucking up his life, and it's not like these parents are are trying to do their best for this kid. They don't like that he's fucking up his life, certainly, with drugs, but they've got his back mostly until he makes them an accomplice. I mean, that's the thing about this is happening in a house they own. They now know about it. They can't let him stay there, or they are accomplices to this meth operation.
Not only are they accomplices,
like he says, we won't let you bring us down with you.
Well, I mean, I think it's,
and they've got a responsibility to the other kid. It's like,
yeah, although they're fucking up with him too. So I feel like that there's a little bit more nuance into this one.
Yeah,
I feel like that what I got out of that is the mom and dad were content to let him live his life in his aunt's house and, you know, get high, do whatever. But you might actually get the house seized civilly through forfeiture laws.
Sure.
And it's one thing to split this thing with you half and 50-50. But the reason we're going back on that is you're putting this all at risk. And, you know, we're not going to take $100,000-$200,000 loss just because you need to cook meth. So yeah, I kind of got as more of a, they've already, I mean, I thought from the previous episode we saw in season 1 that they're kind of already over him emotionally. I mean, clearly it's still ripping them up, but
yeah.
But now they're like, well, we're gonna have to take everything from you and then let the chips fall.
I mean, they have to sever that tie
right
at this point. And it's like, that's the rough thing about it, you know? I mean, some people think these parents are assholes. I don't agree with that.
Everyone in this episode is an asshole. They all have varying reasons.
I don't think the parents are assholes here. Like, I think of anybody in this episode, they are the most justified in what they're doing.
Well, it's interesting
because it's a pattern. It's not like this just happened with Jesse overnight.
Hell no.
This has been going on for years. You can tell.
Yeah.
So the idea that they've been dealing with this shit for years and trying to help him, and he just refuses to change anything about his life, even though it's clearly spiraling the drain at this point.
And this is literally every parent's nightmare, right? The fact that their son or daughter is involved in something so dangerous, and that's kind of a theme too. But you're helpless. Like, what, you know, there's parents that continue to enable this behavior, and then there's parents like like Jesse's parents that kind of give him the tough love after years of trying, and that's probably the correct thing to do. But my God, it can't be easy.
No, certainly.
And it's also like, if coddling them and shielding them from the consequences of their actions is a losing strategy, the tough love has got to be only incrementally more successful.
Sure.
Because you throw a drug addict onto the streets, it's just as likely that
they'll get
things
killed
go really badly, or they get hepatitis or HIV or or like you said, killed, then they actually clean up their lives.
Sure.
And it's gotta be gut. I mean, that's the thing when I'm watching the show, I'm like, God, what? So many terrible situations. And like, what the hell do you do if you're an average person in here?
Yeah, I have so much more sympathy for his parents than I do for Jesse at that point.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how I would deal with that.
But, and then why did Jesse turn to drugs in the first place?
Sure.
And,
fair question.
You know, if you want to say, well, his parents are uptight, middle class, you know, automatons, is that a good enough reason for a teenager to go into drugs and alcohol? I don't
feel like there are any good reasons. I mean, there are reasons.
Yeah.
There are explanations, but I don't feel like any of them are good.
Sure. But there's some stuff like, you know, and why do some kids, almost every kid experiments with one of the following, you know, sex, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, whatever. I mean, very few kids just go through the teenage years without getting involved in some of that stuff. Sure. All of it arguably risky behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do some kids like do the normal amount and some kids go like, and it's like, you know, obviously there's some kids that are especially at risk from their backgrounds and like abuse standpoints.
That's mostly, yeah.
But you also, everyone knows like a middle-class kid that's, you know, seem like I have an okay upbringing and they just go fucking
burnt out,
hog wild on it. Is it genetic? Is there some kind of addiction thing that,
you know, I bet there are a lot of studies on this, none of which I have read, so I don't feel nearly confident enough to comment on it.
But these are the deep thoughts I was thinking while watching this episode.
Sure. And I mean, those are the thoughts you're supposed to be thinking, I imagine, during the show.
I thought the other thing about the scene is how, because we haven't quite got the Jesse scene, have we? Or have we?
What do you mean, Jesse's?
Where his mom walks in on him and catches him with the drugs on his bed. And all
no,
that.
This is it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, drugs everywhere. Yeah. He's hiding bongs. He's hiding trays with coke and heroin and who knows what.
What is in his tank?
His fish tank.
That's like,
I don't know.
Like a turtle. Is there anything living in that tank?
Maybe.
There's cigarette butts in it. It looks disgusting.
I think of all the pets that a junkie could have, a turtle is a pretty good one. They're very low maintenance. It's not like a dog where you got to take it out and walk it and feed it. And
well,
like a turtle, you feed once a week, maybe.
But low maintenance in
frogs.
The sense of
frogs are good, right?
I'm the owner of frogs and fish at this time.
And
they are low maintenance in the fact that you only have to feed them a couple times a week, and they will roughly tolerate filthy water conditions. But that doesn't make it like optimal.
No, of course not.
It's like
being the pet of a junkie is never optimal.
That's only a low maintenance experience if you do not care about the. Yeah, there's like in Japan you can buy like the fucking keychains that just have enough water in to keep a fish or a turtle alive.
This is the reason that I don't have a pet.
That's not
because it would die in a month.
Yes,
I had a house plant. And I would feed it whenever it started looking saggy. And
is your houseplant you bought from IKEA earlier this year still living?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Congratulations!
No, I've been feeding it.
Congratulations!
Well, I haven't really been feeding it. I've been watering it, but you got to change the soil. That's a hassle, man. That's a hassle.
Like I said, low
doesn't
maintenance.
Feel anything either.
Low maintenance when it comes to pets. Only it's like you got to take in the quality of life.
It really is why I don't have pets.
Yeah,
because I know I couldn't provide them with the care that they need.
Yeah, it's like those
any way.
Are they called tardigrades? The water bears. Like shit, you could boil them, put them in outer space for 7 years. They'll still technically be alive.
What about seahorses? How
seahorses?
How
sea monkeys?
Sea monkeys. Yeah,
that's just jizz in a tank.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything with that.
Yeah.
Just let them run wild.
That's South Park science.
Kind of like this podcast.
Yes.
Running wild.
We need to move on.
All right. Walt's cooking breakfast for himself, I think, at this point. And Lewis comes to the door. He calls Junior by the name Flynn, which surprises Walt. This is actually the scene where Junior semi turns down breakfast. Then
he doesn't eat a breakfast that wasn't formally offered to him.
Yeah.
Now, if you go off the Junior as Galactus of breakfast theory, you got to think that he smelled that New Mexican Christmas.
He had to walk by the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, he saw omelets happening.
What would have made me happiest is if he has actually walking out the door with like a tinfoil wrapper, like he'd stop by.
It's not even
wrapped up the omelet.
He's got an omelet in his hand.
Just a fistful of omelet. Okay, sure.
Like a ball of omelet.
You're right. That would be even better. An omelet ball.
Anyway, so once he leaves with Lewis, Walt asks Skylar if she knew about him being called Flynn, and she did. She doesn't make a big deal about it, but Walt's hung up on it. And then she goes out. Walt wants to know where she's going, but she won't tell him. And Jesse calls because he needs more money.
Yeah. And Skylar's like, you better get that mysterious phone call.
Yeah, this is actually the scene we were talking about earlier.
What do you mean?
The one where Lewis comes to the door and he's not offered breakfast, or he is.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that whole thing. And this phone call, like, I can't believe how much they sweat the details in this show, because when Jesse makes this phone call and there's a scene where he's slamming the phone on the counter, he smashes his fingers in it. And then if you look at the next scene that he's
Several
in,
scenes.
He's got bandages on his fingers.
They're not even bandages. They're like packing tape.
They're junkie bandages. Yeah. They're like junkie splints.
Whatever you could find in the house that would staunch bleeding. Yeah.
The house that's being currently all the possessions.
It's worse than your average junkie bandage, because a traditional junkie would have a whole house full of crap that they could cobble together for basic medical supplies. Jesse's got whatever the dudes are carrying out the door.
They took his food out of his refrigerator, apparently.
Who gets the... I want to know.
Got your ice tray.
Is his?
I love that.
Is his mom and dad? Is his mom and dad putting his bong collection and his rolling trays and all that stuff? Are they putting that in storage? Or does that just go right to the trash?
His bongs, they're gone. I mean, unless we know he doesn't take them with him, so yeah, they're gone. He's got no needles.
So sad.
He's got no bongs.
So sad.
Junior seems pretty upset Like that's what I'm getting from this whole thing. He doesn't know what the fuck's going on, but he's upset by something in this house.
Why do you think that? I did not get that.
He just seems very down. Like he's not the usual Junior, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess from the perspective of Junior is a averagely perceptive teenager that can tell shit's gone bad with his mom and dad. And
yeah,
there's some things I want to talk about in the spoiler section, but from his perspective, his dad just came back. There's a perfectly logical reason, medical reason for his dad to have gotten to a fugue state. And his mom just seems like a bitch.
That's the thing.
From Flynn's perspective,
she does, but she's got such good reasons.
He just came back. Yeah, but he doesn't know about any of that.
I know.
And his dad comes back and his mom gives him the cold shoulder, like blaming him for this stuff. That's bullshit. And I think that might be
Junior knows nothing about the second cell phone.
Yeah.
And that the thing that's causing Skylar so much distress, he doesn't know anything about.
Yeah.
So it's got to look weird to him. And
it's also,
that must be it.
I think it's also interesting how Walt does not like the idea that it's almost like he's more worried about Junior talking to other people about him letting him down than the fact that he let him down himself. Like, do you think he said anything it's like, yes, of course. They're friends. I'm sure he's talked about his father disappearing for days on end. We were all upset.
Yeah. And he's also disturbed by him not wanting to apparently use the Walt Jr. name. Like, that's something that disturbs Walt.
Well, I'll tell you what, it would be weird. It would be a shock for me if whether my son was named after me or not, but if he just chose to go by a different name and had been common enough that his mom knew about it and I didn't know about it, yeah, that would be a shocker.
Yeah.
I would be a little upset about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, would you feel upset by the fact that you didn't know that this was happening? You're not engaged enough? Or would you be upset by the fact that no one told you, or all of the above?
I don't know, because I feel like there's a certain amount of hubris involved, and I'm not judging anyone. I'm not judging anyone that has
I want you to call me Flynn from now on.
A junior, like I'm not judging anybody that's got a junior in their life or is a junior, but there's a certain amount of hubris it takes to call your son a junior, like
it's like got this legacy connotation.
Right.
Like, I'm important enough for this shit to matter later on.
Like, it's not nothing I'd call you an asshole about, but just like, it's a level of hubris, a particular type of hubris I don't have and I don't understand.
Okay.
So if I were to name my son that, I think that if he as a teenager decided to be called something different, I would just roll with that punch, because that's
not a huge concern.
But that's a guy who wouldn't name their son after myself.
So I actually have my father's first name as my middle name.
Yeah.
And he has his father's first name as his middle name.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a thing in our family a little bit. Well, I'm trying to think, would I give my first kid my first name as his middle name?
Well, it's funny because I've got the same thing, that I'm named after my grandfather.
Okay.
And my great grandfather, my dad is named after that. So it's like,
I kind of want to.
It's like that's like a more altruistic. Like it's a
fulfilling
token of appreciation of my father's.
Yes. Yeah.
And your father's father than it is myself. It's like a weird respect to your ancestry.
It's not a hubris thing.
But I didn't keep that tradition.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
All right.
So I don't know.
Shame on you.
Wrong person to ask. I was tested and I was found wanting. And I don't know.
I kind of think I would want to.
I ought to talk to my dad about that the next time I see him. It's like, hey,
hey
Pop, were you like when you're rubbing your hands together? It's like, oh man, I'm gonna get it's a male child. It's gonna be little Aaron Dad part 2 or whatever. And then like, were you disappointed when I didn't do that or what? I don't know.
All right, let's go to Jesse's bandmate's house, where he's trying to not con his way into a place to stay, but he's definitely trying to find a place to stay. The guy's wife comes home and puts the kibosh on the whole thing. And then he calls another friend, he turns him down, and his bike gets stolen. A bad turn of luck for Jesse here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you even grant that, he deserved his parents' stuff, this is just bad luck here.
Sure. And exceptional, because I don't know how in the world you steal someone's motorcycle when they're literally
phone 5 feet away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's shocking.
I mean, maybe if Jesse didn't spend as much time banging, like it's a bad episode for telephones.
Yes.
Telephones are just being brutalized in this episode.
Right.
Also, I got to shout out, we totally glossed over the fact you mentioned that you forgot the ice trays moment.
Uh-huh.
In that same conversation, said Jesse described his housing situation as going entirely testicular.
That's awesome.
I fucking love. I love that. I'm definitely going to add it to my
vocabulary.
repertoire of folksy expressions of things.
Sure.
I guess something else I got to talk about. I got to make a note for the spoiler section.
Oh,
this Pete thing had no chance in hell. The second the mom came home, like I feel like
bad news.
Jesse was even feeling bad just looking at the kid. Like, I don't belong here.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell. That's the whole point of this scene, is just how much this guy has gotten on with his life, where Jesse is stuck in Shitsville.
What's Pete? And I've got some interesting headcanon about this, how clueless Pete is, because Pete seems like a clueless guy. So he's a bandmate of Twat Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at if you went on to our news post and you saw all the webisodes that they made between seasons 1 and 2, they did a behind the scenes band video for Twat Hammer with Badger and Jesse. But you find out that Jesse took over from the original drummer, and that guy got squeezed out of the band.
Pete.
In the video, Pete was the drummer.
Yeah.
So this is how stupid Pete is. Jesse showed up, stole his gig, and now Jesse's showing back up with the, hey, we should get the Twat Hammer back together.
Yeah, I almost feel like Pete kind of knew that his wife was just not going to put up with this shit in a way. Because like when he's like, yeah, that would be cool, man. Imagine how cool that would be.
I don't know. Pete seems like the guy that's totally like he
didn't say, but look, the realities of it are I'm sitting next to my kid, I'm feeding him breakfast. There's no way I can do this shit. He's just like, yeah, that would be cool.
You never met dudes like that?
No, I guess I have.
They're like totally about like, oh man, I bet you're getting so much pussy, and like they're just too they need a woman like that in their life, or they'd end up like Jesse.
Oh yeah, totally. Like
it doesn't occur to them that's a crazy idea until their wife gets something like, you've got a child and you do this and do that, you can't do this. And it's like, oh man,
Sure.
So yeah, I feel like I've known a couple guys like that.
All right.
Pretty stupid dude, Pete.
Yeah. Speaking of stupid, Jesse goes to where the RV is being stored. He climbs the fence, ends up on top of a portalette and falls through the roof, spilling whatever juices are in that thing.
He blew himself.
He did. It's definitely blue. I imagine it's not sanitary in any kind of way, but he then goes off.
It would actually not surprise me if that fluid is described as sanitary fluid.
Yes.
But yes, it's kind of like...
But once you mix it with non-sanitary things...
It's kind of like North Korea calls themselves the People's Democratic Republic of Korea.
Sure.
The name and the facts have no bearing in this case.
Yep. So he goes into the RV to sleep it off. I really love...
You can't sleep that off.
No, it's still on him when he wakes up.
It's quite impossible to sleep that off.
The gas mask thing.
Sleeping in the gas mask.
Fantastic.
And him sobbing.
I love that touch.
Him sobbing himself to sleep. It's the lowest even taking into account the time he got the piss beat out of him.
Yeah.
This is probably the lowest point in the series thus far for him.
Easily. He's covered in what I presume is shit.
Blue flavored shit.
Water.
Oh god, it's gotta be terrible.
Yeah, it's bad news for Jesse.
He's like, when he that's the thing, like he's gagging on his own stench. Great scene.
Is there anything to the fact that this liquid is blue? The meth they're cooking is blue?
Yes, but in real life that stuff is blue, right?
Yeah. No, totally. Did they do this as any kind of symbolism, do you think?
So it's
like this, he's covered in this shit, and this is the thing that's bringing him down.
Man, it's kind of thing. Like I'm making a note to make sure I listen to the behind the scenes podcast before next week's. But
yeah,
I don't know. It'd be interesting because I've listened to enough of those to know that about half the stuff you think is intentional are happy little accidents.
Yes.
Or they like start, getting into it's like, oh, well, it's the fluid's leaking out. It's blue. Oh, blue. Oh, blue sky. Oh, and then it becomes part of the lore. So, I intentionally think that Vince Gilligan wrote an episode where Jesse destroys a portalette so he can get covered in blue filth. That is the physical manifestation of the evil he's putting on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would believe that, but I don't necessarily think it's true.
But no, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, is Adnan innocent or not?
Oh my God.
I have a similarly nuanced view.
The answer to that is just to shrug and move on. Okay. All right. So we go to the next morning. Skylar leaves. She takes off again. Walt Jr. Is kind of hanging around the house. I think he's about to go out for school, and Walt just says, before school, let's go out and try to teach you how to drive.
Could be a weekend too.
I don't think so, because then later on, the next scene, he says Walt left with Lewis for school. I think. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe Walt's coming home from school. Is this a morning?
I think it's a morning. I think because I think this all happens like Jesse wakes up. This scene happens. Walt Jr. leaves for school, all kind of in the same little time chunk.
Okay.
Anyway, Walt wants him to drive in a certain style with 1 foot instead of 2, and Junior can't handle it, and he hits a barrel.
Yeah, I don't know why driving with 2 feet is a bad idea, but I do know that every single person I know that has driven with 2 feet has been a terrible driver.
My mom drives with 2 feet.
Is she a terrible driver? I don't think I've ever driven with her.
I don't think so.
What'd your dad think of that? Was your dad ever in the car
feet?
as a passenger and she's 2-footing it? And did he?
No, I never recall any conversations about that.
Interesting.
I just remember my mom driving with 2 feet.
Huh.
I always think it would be confusing.
Yeah.
Like,
or you subconsciously rest your foot on the brake pedal and you're going to just wear down your brakes.
And what do you do? What do you do when you got a clutch involved in the mix?
So with the clutch, that's what your left foot's for.
Yeah, but your right foot would then become the brake, and that would get even extra confusing.
Always the brake.
But only
if you 2-foot.
I'm saying if you're a 2-footer on an automatic, what does a clutch look like to you?
That's what I'm saying. I would say that a 2-footer does not drive a clutch. They just like give up.
Okay.
You might as well hang a Rubik's Cube from the rear view mirror.
Yes.
If you can't single foot a double pedal, there's no way you can double foot a triple pedal.
I think that's a paradox.
That's splitting the
Yeah.
That's how Interstellar. That's how humans evolved to 5th dimensional beings. They learn how to 2-foot a 3-pedal.
For sure.
And they transcended.
Yeah, she drives like that. I don't know, but it's never been a problem. I don't think she's a bad driver.
My ex-mother-in-law used to 2-foot, and also she treated the gas as a binary pedal. Like there was no
it's on or off.
Yeah, like if you were in a car, it's
like Junior.
This is what you were doing the whole time. You just you felt a surge and stop and surge and stop, and it's.
I was always told it's like you have an egg under your foot,
and
you want to push it without breaking the egg.
I was always taught you have a potato on your foot and you just fucking mash it.
That's how you got a brick on your foot.
That's how my father taught me to drive.
Awesome.
Stop sign to red line every time.
See, I would think a motorcycle would be super confusing. Like you've got throttle and brake on one hand, and you've got your gear shift with your feet. That's like as a car driver exclusively.
If you're 2-footing, if you're 2-footing an automatic state, fuck off a motorcycle.
Yes,
for all of our goods.
I agree with that totally.
You have to be on a motorcycle. You have to be like like the Terminator vision, where it's just like overlaid with grids and possible threats and percentages. That's how you're on a motorcycle.
No, I'm a 1-footer and I wouldn't try a motorcycle. But one time I rode a dirt bike. And I ended up crashing it my very first time.
Yes.
I went too fast down a gravel road.
That's bad.
Fishtailed when I hit the brakes, and then went right over it.
Our podcast has turned into a combination of click and clack and serial. This is too many tangents.
Let's move on then.
All right.
The guy who towed the RV, whose name is Clovis, actually, finds Jesse inside of it, and he tells him that he can't stay there. And then when he kicks Jesse out, Jesse climbs back over the fence and steals the RV, and rams it right out the gates. This guy looked like he was gonna sell Jesse's stuff. He's talking to guys like, how much is this shit worth? Oh, whoa, it's worth that much.
Yeah, methylamine is worth that much, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. He was going to fence for shit, and I think he was entirely within his right.
Sure.
I mean, he already let Jesse off the hook once. He shows up and you spent the night in the covered in blue shit with a mask on. You're not going to talk yourself out of that again.
No, and you destroyed the man's portalet. So.
But on the other hand, Jesse stole. And what do you do with your Clovis? You report that to the police?
No.
Someone stole the drug barn that I helped tow off of their property.
Nope, they don't do that.
After they broke in, covered. Yeah, that's that conversation doesn't end well.
Yep. So Junior leaves for school, and Walt decides now is the time that I need to apologize to Skylar. You know, his half-assed apologies. It doesn't go as planned because he won't actually tell her what's really going on, and so she storms out. And I felt like this scene, like I'm on Skylar's side in this scene. I am kind of feeling bad in a way for Walt, though, because Walt is caught up in something that he really can't confess. I mean, if he confesses at this point, I don't think she's going to understand that he's doing it for the family.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe does, but
that's the great what if of this show. Like,
yeah,
what
if he hadn't gotten that phone call in the bathroom last episode?
When is the time to come clean? What if he had stopped? What if he had done things different?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
because this thing is
tough.
You know, it's tough on Skylar too, because she's got a kid on the way, and there's another one, and she loves Walt, and he's got cancer. I feel like she'd have been like, okay, fuck this, I'm going to the police. But I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't seem like Walt can really take that chance, though.
Right.
I don't know. He doesn't. I feel like he doesn't want the last years of his life with his wife to be bad. If he's going to die of cancer, he wants to try to protect them from what he's doing. But he also wants to do what he's doing to protect them from their future. Yeah. Without him, it's rough.
Yeah. What did you think of the opening where his icebreaker with Skylar was, I dreamt I owned an antique bicycle repair shop in Ireland?
I didn't even catch that. Is that what he said?
Yeah. Like, how did they write that line? It was that line just like Mad Lib style, and
it feels like it, yeah.
Like, hey, let's put some adjectives and some nouns and locations on a dartboard and spin Vince around, blindfold him, and see what happens. Or
do you see a connection?
If this wasn't like a dartboard / manatee tank style of writing, there has to be some connection.
Maybe it feels more like dartboard stuff to me.
I love Cerebral.com. I love the work Arya does there on the Breaking Bad observations, and he had quite a few things to say, possibilities, but none of them. I was kind of like, I ain't buying any of it. I don't see the connect. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, yeah, in an English class literature essay, you might get away with making those connections and get a good grade.
Yeah.
And so
but in the real world, there are people writing this, and they have whims. And
yeah, you're not wrong, but I don't think you're conclusively right either. Nothing was like aha, like I normally is. So I just wanted to see what you thought, because
I'm more on the side of like the writers just were having fun. Said we want him to say something weird here.
Say opening up here.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd buy that. Okay. I also got to love Skylar for labeling Walt's cooking attempts as no more of these obvious, desperate breakfasts.
Yes.
I kind of think like in the first 5 minutes, that's what I was writing in my notes. Like, my God, look how obvious and desperate this breakfast strategy was. And then she said it 30 minutes later.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
No, she's not being fooled by any of this shit.
Hell no.
So she storms out. He chases her outside, and then he sees the RV parked on the street, which is maybe the worst possible thing you could see going outside. His
all of the comedy in this episode rests in the next 5 minutes. And not to say that there wasn't some serious shit going on, but it's like he goes from trying to talk Skylar out of leaving. Skylar leaves, and he looks up, and there's the RV. And it's like, what the? It's priceless.
Yeah, he goes out there. He berates Jesse for being an idiot. And then Jesse gets fed up and they fight.
It's interesting because I wonder, for Jesse's perspective, he just had his biological mother, tell him this same speech, slapping and what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Now Walt is pushing him in the chest and saying, what's wrong with you? Why are you blue? There's no half the money. What are we partners? What do you do? I'm a cook. You're a junkie. You're too stupid to follow room instructions. All that led to, like, if his mom hadn't popped off on him, or you know, if Walt hadn't, I don't know that they get in a fight. But all this stuff is just too much for Jesse to bear. And
you're right. You're right. This is the lowest point, and Walt is not helping. But at the same time, it is incredibly stupid.
Sure.
You know, I mean, it is not a smart thing to take the RV to the scene of your crime, basically, with Walt.
Yeah, how old is Jesse, do you think? How old is he supposed to be?
And Walt, like, his concern has been for his family this whole time, and by bringing this to his family, he is seriously fucking up.
Can you imagine? I survived Tuco.
Yeah.
And I could be brought down by you bringing home an RV. And that's the other thing. It's like, him and Skylar just had a big fight. It's entirely likely that Skylar just loops around the block and comes in and says, I'm sorry, or, yeah, and another thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Thank God she decided to take off for a couple more hours. And have her prenatal smoke vitamin.
Yeah. No, there's so much bad stuff going on here.
This is a gut-wrenching episode. Like, everybody is just terrible to everybody.
Why doesn't Jesse beat the shit out of Walt in this scene, in your opinion? Because Walt's telling him, do it. Do it. Like, Walt's giving up.
I don't think Jesse's got it in him. I think Walt's got it in him, but Jesse doesn't got it in him.
So just, you know, a fit of rage. All the shit is coming down on his head. He gets angry. He lashes out, but then he realizes, yeah, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, I feel like there's types of people out there that could fly rage and beat like a friend severely, but would never kill them. I also think there's people out there that would never beat anyone, but could fly into rage and kill people.
Huh.
Walt seems like that kind of dude. Jesse seems like the other type of dude.
Huh.
Like, he'll fly the handle.
Also, Walt seems kind of pathetic at this point, right? As well.
Like the first scene where Skylar leaves him all day and he's just kind of huddled on the couch and his shoulder. I mean, Bryan Cranston, brilliant physical actor.
Oh, yeah.
And the way he kind of hunches his shoulders in and tucks his, like, you know, neck in turtle-like. He's just so small sitting on that couch. Yeah, this is a down episode for everybody. Everybody's down.
Yeah, but I think Jesse sees a little bit of that, you know. I mean, this am I really going to beat to death a man with cancer who's just trying to help his family?
He's also just giving up. He's letting me.
Yeah. And he's so pathetic in that moment too. He's like, just kill me. Just please, just get this over with. I'm at the end of my rope.
But now let me ask you this. Why did this motivate Walt
to invite him in for breakfast?
Yeah. That's a weird, their dynamic is so weird throughout the series. Why? I
feel like that was a moment where Walt realized, you know, maybe I am being kind of a dick here. Maybe I need to take a little bit of responsibility. I won't fess up to my wife. I won't stop cooking meth. But in this moment, I feel like I have some burden to bear here. Here's your half of the cash.
My wife's walking out on me in the middle of the day doing nothing. My son's rejected the name I gave to him. I can't be an asshole to everyone.
Yeah.
I need and I think that's the other interesting thing. If you track the legitimate son, which is Walt Jr., versus the illegitimate son, which is Jesse.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of this stuff that he was piling on, this abuse on the Jesse, was like a dark mirror image of the stuff he was saying to Walt Jr. Like, you know, don't give up. You're better than this. Don't let things be an obstacle. You know, while his son is failing and driving through orange barrels, where Jesse, who's also metaphorically driving through orange barrels and is making a mess of his life, he's saying you're stupid, you're useless, you never learn how to think, and just all these incredibly vicious things.
Yeah, I think he felt pretty bad about that. Anyway, so we go back to Skylar, and she is outside of the gas station. She's smoking a cigarette, and a lady looks over at her and shakes her head.
Gets a little judgy look.
Yeah, well, rightfully so.
Sure.
I mean, like, of all the horrible shit I will say about what Walt is doing to Skylar, it doesn't justify doing that shit to your kid. Sorry. And I feel like as much as I don't want to say that Skylar is being bitchy about, you know, the way she's treating Walt, I will also say this is not the solution and that she is doing a horrible thing here at the end. Like that, none of that entitles her to jeopardize the future of her unborn child, no matter how mad she gets at Walt, no matter how bad things are going for her in her life.
But more to your point about this, like, what would Walt have done if he had come? I think they're trying to lay the fact that there is a little bit, and again, having one cigarette while you're pregnant is not nearly as bad.
It's not the end of the world
as cooking hundreds of $1,000s of meth and dragging your family unknowingly into criminal enterprise with.
But it's selfish. It's selfish.
They're showing like that they both have a similar disregard to the rules under times of stress.
Huh? Yeah.
To where we're led to believe that maybe Walt would have been right to just come clean.
And do you think Skylar realizes that when she lights up that cigarette and says,
I don't think any of this is conscious. Just like I don't think Walt realizes how complex his motivations are when he started cooking meth and what he's really doing it for versus what he says he's doing it for, et cetera, et cetera. And, shit, you can debate that till the cows come home. But I think there's part of that there. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons that the Villigan put the scene in there is to start showing and how that there is more that these people have in common than we think. Perhaps.
Yeah, no, and I think this last scene is kind of brilliant in a way because it shows, that connection you're talking about between Walt and Skylar. But it also, I think, shows a little bit about how Walt isn't as great as he thinks he is. Because if you think about it, this is apparently a gas station that both Skylar and Walt visit.
It's the same kind of gulp and go that Walt met Jesse at. Is it the same?
It's exactly the same.
Okay,
one.
I thought
it is the same.
I thought that.
That's sloppy of Walt to call a meeting in a gas station that both he and his wife frequent on many occasions. He should be out in the middle of nowhere meeting with Jesse.
And that's the other thing. Like when you watch stuff like that and you see them do that, clandestine meet, and you can tell that Walt thinks he's being super clever.
Yes.
And while we're watching, I'm like, they think this is being so fucking smart. But if you're looking in a courtroom at this footage of these two guys on a black and white CCTV feed,
see their mouths moving.
This is guilt. This shit is not going to fly.
You see them looking directly at each other. Like
Walt's so boned. I mean, so many times Jesse's called his landline already.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no fucking way that if anybody starts looking at this case, it's not going to collapse.
No, they have to avoid suspicion at this point, but they're not doing a great job of that either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is sloppy on Walt's part to call this meeting where he does. And I think that has to tie in a little bit with how sloppy he thinks Jesse is being with him taking the RV to his house. Sure, they're not the same thing. Jesse's a lot sloppier, but at the same time, Walt's not perfect about this shit either.
So it shows also then you got a baseline of hypocrisy for both him and Skylar.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to say Skylar is hypocritical or is bad or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's clearly narratively what they're trying to show. Also the fact that like this is kind of Skylar at her most nihilistic.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like, is there a little bit of Kate from The Godfather here with it was an abortion, Mike, Godfather 2? Because we just watched that yesterday, watched this too, and I was thinking, again, subconsciously, is this a weird strikeout at Walt as well, and his legacy, like on a subconscious level?
Could be.
I probably would never think that if I hadn't saw Godfather 2 yesterday. So,
but we know that the Villigan does take a lot of cues from
he does.
Scarface, Godfather, Western movies.
Yes, he does.
A lot of pop culture stuff in here. So that's it for the episode.
For the outro here, Dave Porter gave it a rest and just played Twat Hammer.
All right.
Fallacies. Sure. I just, for the first time researching this episode, realized that fallacies is a penis joke.
Okay.
On top of Twat Hammer, fallacies.
Gotcha.
It's the plural of phallus. Phalluses.
In Jesse's mind, it is.
Yeah. And his, it's Kafka-esque.
All right.
You could say.
Sure. I buy that.
All right, cool. I just thought it was funny. When I realized it is, I
didn't even think of it.
Breakfast count stands at 4 out of 6 with an asterisk. Could be 5 out of 6. Who knows? Could be 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
Shall we do some pimping?
Sure.
Hey, would you like to support Bald Move? Because the only reason you're able to listen to this podcast right here, and if you see it as value,
is because there's nothing else good on TV right now.
But more to the point, if we weren't being paid and we were just working our regular 9-to-5 gigs, we would not be spending the start of our Christmas break talking about Breaking Bad.
No, we'd be on hiatus.
We might want to. We'd been on a hiatus for the last 2 weeks, and we wouldn't be coming back till February when Breaking. We would be getting to any of the shows.
Justified, Americans, kind of
Better
stuff.
Call Saul would have been tough for us to pick up because they overlaps with Walking Dead.
Yeah,
and then it goes right into the already crazy doubleheader of Mad Men and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'm getting aside from the point, which is a pattern I'm making in this particular podcast. But I'm just saying, if you like this and you want to, and if you like this and you want to help us keep it going, we rely almost entirely on your support. There's a lot of ways you can do that. You can go to patreon.com or subbable.com. And just straight up give us money in exchange for things. On the Patreon side, you get like access, like you watch our cast live. You can experience the lunch with Jim and Aaron, where you can come hang out with us on our video cameras. Lots of cool new things we're cooking up for that. And you can go to subbable.com.
Yeah,
well, stuff.
I mean, we just introduced 2 new levels on Patreon.
Oh, are we ready to talk about that yet?
I mean, they're up. You can sign up for them right now, so we better be.
Sure. There are some cool things coming down the pike on Patreon. But yeah, some cool stuff going on in Subbable too. And Subbable is where you go to get things like commissioned podcast. We've recently done a Star Wars podcast. We did Anne of Green Gables for a Christmas present for some dude's wife. We fucked it up so bad.
Yeah, that's coming out on Christmas, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, but other than that, they make great Christmas presents and birthday gifts and cool things. You can also Amazon.baldmove.com. If you haven't got your Christmas shopping done, Amazon still got that 2-day delivery.
Yep.
I wouldn't order something on the 23rd and expect to show up on the 25th. I totally order something on the 18th or 19th and expect to get there. So if you got some last minute Christmas shopping, check out. They still got some. Apparently, Digital Monday lasts all month long in December for Amazon. So there's still
Digital Month Day.
Bezos has gone so crazy with our copper thievery that he's lost track of what the days of the Gregorian calendar actually mean and what month he's in, and it's just running all week. Take advantage of his insanity.
Who says he's even using the Gregorian calendar?
He's using the Bezoian calendar.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Every day is Digital Monday. And you can use our link at amazon.baldmove.com. Instead of going to Amazon, you get the same great deals and service, but what you do get in return is able to support us because we get a tiny cut off of that.
Yeah.
And thousands of people use it. Not such a tiny cut. So a great way to support us. We appreciate everyone that supported us, not just now, but all throughout the year. We literally could not do it without. I mean, a lot of people say, "Hey, we can't do it without your support," and they're just being nice. We literally mean it. We could not do what we're doing without your guys' constant support. So
absolutely,
thank you for everyone that's done that. And I think it's time for feedback.
Okay, let's do it.
Maddie's first up. This, I believe, is for the previous episode 203. Said when Walt was watching Skyler and Junior's quote unquote breakfast without him, that was the midnight breakfast jury that he'd snuck into his own house and he's watching them kind of support each other through the half closed door.
I maintain that was very early morning, as opposed to late evening.
Maddie doesn't give a shit. He's saying, I think the point was that he did think they'd be okay without him, without any contribution from him, and that bothered him so much just seeing that. Breaking Bad is in the end about Walt's ego, and I think he can't stand the thought of his family not needing him. Did you get a little bit of that from the interaction? No.
As I said last episode, I thought it was more him seeing his family as a unit without him and being sad that was in his future.
See, I feel like I'm right between you and Matt's take. I see both.
Okay.
I think there's a sadness, but also the like, man, maybe I shouldn't be doing this because they're probably going to be okay.
You might be right. He did have breakfast.
Elizabeth G says Skyler knows that Walt is up to something. She knows her husband. She may come across in a negative way, but you have to admit that she is right to take the stand she's taking. She's unwilling to go along with the lies Walt's telling her. He owes her the truth, but Walt thinks he can pull his money-making scheme off and keep her in the dark. Skyler would not want to take the drug money. That is what Walt believes.
Yeah.
Do you... I guess that's the thing now that I've, started to come around to more on the Skyler side. From Walt's perspective, he doesn't really care what Skylar and his kids think of him in the here and now. This is about his legacy and their future. And it's like, I can see the people that love Walter White down to the very end thinking that that's kind of noble to provide for your family no matter what they think of you.
Yeah, there is a certain nobility in that. It's just a shame that they can't see it in the moment like he does.
Sure. You know? Or, and I don't even think that moment is there, that there is a moment where you could step back and be like, gee, thanks for slanging that crystal, Pop.
Yeah, no, you might be right.
Thanks for putting me through
even
college
after
with that
the
crystal.
Fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might not be there.
But that definitely, there is something, and I don't know it's a correct way to look at it, but there is something I can see kind of heroic about that.
It is. And I feel like that's why this show works. Like on a base level, if he was doing it for selfish reasons in any way,
yeah,
you would not be rooting for him.
Sure.
Whereas here, he's ostensibly not doing it
right
for those reasons.
That's all of our non-spoiler feedback. Most of our feedback was spoilery in nature. We've got a probably very robust spoiler section coming up.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people,
really no non-spoiler feedback on this episode.
Yeah. A lot of people really gotten into some of the stuff we talked about in the last podcast.
Okay.
And some other tidbits. And I've got a lot of stuff to talk about or spoilery. But if you're a rookie, you need to switch it off now. Wait until you catch up.
Yeah.
Then come back, get the spoilery goodness.
All right, cool. Well, we're going to be back with another episode next week. I think we're going to be recording this next episode on Monday of next week.
Yeah.
For release on Thursday. So if you want to get feedback in, get it in this weekend.
Yeah.
Because with the Christmas,
I'm not trying to record a podcast on Christmas Day.
Fuck no.
Not with an 8-year-old in the house.
Especially when I'm in LA.
Yeah, and you're going to be
it's going to be remote. I'm going to be at my girlfriend's parents' house. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
So we'll be getting this done Monday. So if you want to watch it over the weekend, get some feedback to us, send it to breakinggood@baldmove.com.
Yeah.
Talk about it on our forums at forums.baldmove.com. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/baldmove, Twitter @baldmove. That covered our bases. Let's get to spoilers, man.
All of the above. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back next Thursday. Until then, I'm Jim.
And I'm Aaron.
See ya. And we're back with the spoiler section. What do we have this week?
So I was kind of dismissive, or I've been dismissive about the color theories.
Yes, you have.
And you said something after we talked about last week. You're like, I don't know if you should be that dismissive about the color theories, or you kind of took me to task off air. So let's talk about this.
I'll take you to task on air.
I knew you would. What are the color theories of Breaking Bad?
Oh my God. Well, there's a lot of purple in Breaking Bad. Don't know if
that's not the color theory.
Noticed. It's not really the color theory. There's a lot of yellow stuff.
Green,
there's a lot revolving around clothing and what characters are dressed in.
Yeah.
Red being a big one, especially with Walt, with his wine and his red colored shirt when he changes demeanor.
You know, Jesse goes from red to yellow to the gray.
Sure. I mean, there's just a lot.
He goes from dark purple to light purple, and then like a medium purple.
Right. Hank's in yellow a lot at some point.
Gus,
absolutely. So it's just like, what does the colors that these people are wearing say about their mental state at the time? I think, and their intentions, their shades of good and bad. I think is kind of where I took it in seasons 4 and 5.
Okay. So we covered that a lot in seasons 4 and 5.
Yeah.
I'm off the color theory, and here's why, and then you can respond.
Okay.
To me, theories are only interesting if they have, and this is a scientist in me, predictive power.
Sure.
Like if red means a particular thing thematically or mood, it should always mean that. But what I see with this, and also like I think Tom and Lorenzo, they're one of my favorite commentators for Mad Men. But when they do the Mad Men style and they talk about like, you know, all the colors and what this means, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just think it's such bullshit because red can mean anger, or it can mean security,
or it can mean
love, or it can mean
so many things.
And it's not like, and I could even believe that Vince Gilligan would say, red means danger, and it's always going to be danger or violence or blood. But that's not what they say. It's like in each individual episode, it can change. And it's like, you draw themes, it's like that this particular episode, that's what this means. And in this particular episode, this is what this means. And it's like, if it has no predictive power, and it can be variable depending on episode to episode, then what value does it have? And I'm not saying it's not interesting to think about. And if you look at and you see those posters where they take like all of Walt's clothes from the beginning of this thing and to the end, and it's like a color chart. That's kind of interesting.
That is super interesting. So I agree a lot with what you're saying, as far as, you know, like not everything that's red can have the same meaning. Like you're going to have some incidentals. You're going to have people driving the color of car that they drove previously because that's just their car.
Right.
Like, but the broader themes, like the one that I see that really stands out is Walter White's transformation.
Yeah.
And that is a conscious effort on their part to take him from these beige, just bland colors and put him in the reds and the greens and these kind of brighter colors with black pants, and they're changing who he is as a character.
But so does shaving his head, so does getting his more stylish glasses, so does losing the mustache and
like
getting
part of a whole.
It's part of his characterization.
Yeah.
But so like to me,
and there also are like incidents of specific things that they did with color.
But that's like
we've listened to their podcast,
right? But that's like saying, you know, it seems like no one oohs and ahs over the fact that they cut his ugly ass mustache and had him grow a goatee.
Yes,
that gives him a more aggressive, villainous look. So does having him wear silk purple threads, and also it looks more like Gus. You can see him kind of transform more into Gus, and Gus looks like Walt when he's being a manager at Los Pollos or Pollos Hermanos, and he looks more like Heisenberg when he's being a drug king. Well, no shit.
Yeah.
But that stuff is just like as obvious as saying he lost the ugly caterpillar and he's got the sleek goatee and he's wearing a pork pie. I'm like, those are all just, they're no more thematic than Batman wearing blue, gray, and black. Like, he's a Batman and he skulks in the shadows, and that's his motif.
Yeah.
But I think that
I feel like
mistake that many people make is they take that motif and the visual art of storytelling that the directors are using to make you feel certain ways.
Yeah.
And then try to get a larger holistic meaning to that color. And that's where the Tom and the Renzos get off into the weeds. In my opinion, I could be wrong. Just after 2 years of covering Breaking Bad, seeing where this stuff goes, and then like kind of didn't go anywhere.
It means something in the moment that it's shown to you, I feel, but to take it and say that this is the meaning of the color and this is always the meaning of the color.
And no one ever does that, but that's the thing. If that was the case, I would be a little bit more interested in it. Because
but you also couldn't do that because Walt would be wearing red every color or every episode for the final 2 seasons, you know? It's like,
well, he does. I mean,
do you want him in the same color shirt every single time you see him?
Well, I think that would be interesting if I was watching a show, because then when you meet new characters,
you could judge them based on what they're wearing.
You could start making inferences, and then when a character suddenly switches from like red to yellow, like now you know
that's not realistic.
That's a character change. Some change has occurred, but you couldn't say, well, then it went from red to yellow. Why, when Jesse went from red to yellow, this is what happened. Now, when Walt went from beige to red, there's no predictive power there.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I feel like there are not, like, you don't exactly need to track it episode to episode, but there are moments in these characters' lives that they do change, and that these colors do have meaning, but it's not all the time, and it doesn't have to be constant. It's not something you need to look at over the course of a season and say, oh, well, in 2 episodes he's in red, in 1 episode he's in green, he's wearing beige in another. Yeah. What is it? Is the character itself all over the place? Well, no, it's just that realistically people wear different colors, and sometimes it means things and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
You know?
I mean, my hoodie's black, your hoodie's orange.
Oh my God.
My God. I've got a Breaking Bad t-shirt on. What does it mean? Probably because it's Thursday and I'm recording Breaking Bad.
I've got the t-shirt of my old job.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why, you know, if you ever wondered why I kind of give short shrift, because, you know, that's
but you can't totally discount it either.
No, and I'm not totally discounting. I'm just saying
because they do mention it.
That's since I kind of run the spoilers department. Because I get the notes together. That's why, you know, my editorial choice is to, unless it's something just as part of like Walt's transformation to Gus, we will talk about I don't know actually, because that happens in season 4. But we did talk about
we did talk about,
and we'll talk about like the transformation Gus makes between seasons 2 and 3 and stuff along that lines. But further than that, just doesn't interest me. And that's why I don't talk about on an episode by episode the way Tom and Lorenzo do.
Yeah,
the
no,
way I love Arya
right.
on. I think everyone knows I love Arya on his work on Cereal. He gets at least one page devoted to the color wheel. I just it's not interesting to me.
No, I like your approach. I think, you know, when it's relevant, mention it. When it doesn't seem to be, then don't bother with it.
All right. So a couple other things I noticed. I felt like there was a lot of peekaboo foreshadowing here.
With the fallacies kid?
The fallacies kid, the Peter kid. Mm-hmm. The kind of awkwardness, but also the fact that Jesse always seems like he's good with little kids. And I'm talking about the full episode knowledge or full season's knowledge of Jesse.
Yeah.
But this was a little bit really on the nose, knowing the peekaboo's coming up in 2 episodes. And, even more so than seeing him interact with his little brother, seeing him interact with this kid and like have empathy to this kid's situation. And
yeah. Well, I think Jesse, in a lot of ways, sees the errors that he's made, hopes that these kids aren't going to be making the same errors. I mean, certainly with his little brother, that's the way he feels. And Jesse strikes me as somebody who feels guilty about what he's doing, but won't change it.
Yeah.
That's just how I see Jesse.
Yeah.
Like, he knows better, but he's not, whatever. He doesn't have the testicular fortitude or just the desire to change his own life, but he wishes something better for other kids.
Sure. Yeah. He has the moments of clarity, but then he doesn't act on the knowledge he gets on that.
Yep.
So can we talk about the Flynn and Lewis theories?
Okay. Which theories?
And I was so they're always talking about Flynn and Lewis.
He kind of comes out of nowhere, Lewis.
And I forgot that we actually saw the young man.
Oh, yeah.
And
this is one of the few times.
There were so many predictions that Walt Jr. is going to do drugs and it's somehow going to be tied to Lewis, that Lewis is his gay boyfriend. What are Lewis and Flynn up to? That it's conspicuous that they're always been.
And why does he call him Flynn?
It seems to me, yeah. Why did they pick? I thought it was because of his middle name. It's not. It's just some random thing he chose, which is really weird.
And I can't believe that it's related to Errol Flynn at all.
No. But he also Walt scandalized that Junior has no idea who Steely Dan. Yeah. Or was it Roscoe Skaggs?
Boss Skaggs.
Boss Skaggs. Boss Hog. I don't know. To me, after everything's said and done, Lewis was just a friend Walt Jr. had. To show that Walt Jr. had a life outside of. I think that's it.
Outside.
That was the narrative effect, that it was outside the breakfast table and the White family home. He had another life and he was actually thinking and feeling and doing things. Because every once in a while you'd see him come flying in with like the donation website.
Yeah.
And, him taking sides with his mom and dad. But it was all centered around Walter. This was a little thing to kind of like, he's a normal kid too. Don't forget that. And I feel silly for engaging in the speculation at this point.
Yeah, I can get behind that. But to me, the Lewis thing never felt complete. Lewis comes in completely unannounced,
you think that,
without any fanfare, and then he goes out the same way. I mean, Lewis at some point becomes a non-issue, a non-entity, right? Yeah, like,
definitely
mentioned a few times throughout the series, but it's not like he ever factors into the plot at all.
No, I definitely get down with that. And so you think that he might be a drop plot point? That he was introduced deliberately?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because also the thing to always keep in mind in season 2 is that by Villigan's admission, this is the most highly architected of all the seasons.
Yeah.
He was introduced in this season. Do you think that they meant him to go somewhere and they just never got around as they started paring down what the story is actually about? And, somewhere in season 3 to season 4, the ending became crystallized and just there was no room for Lewis?
You're probably right about that. Yeah, because it really just feels like it goes nowhere.
And you can talk about like, part of Hank, trying to scare Junior straight and all that, and Walt getting Junior drunk, which I think happens in a few episodes. Maybe it happens in season 3.
I'm not
sure.
Part
of season 2.
Yeah.
That this is kind of like a lot of obvious foreshadowing. Like if Walt Jr. had hit the blue pipe in season 5, everyone been like, well, of course, look at all this stuff.
You mean the pipe in the portalet where the blue stuff comes out?
Yes,
that,
the blue.
Okay.
He hit the blue poop pipe. People were like, of course. But he didn't.
Yeah.
So now it feels like nothing went
sure.
there,
And remember the speculation, I mean, about, him getting the job at Gus's Chicken Shack and Los Pollos Hermanos, and like Hank was going to get him as an undercover guy into the opera.
Take down the whole chicken empire.
None of that shit happened.
Yeah.
It feels like Junior is almost, until the very end of this thing, like an ancillary character.
One of the complexities of this show is seeing Skylar suffer the unwarranted attacks from her son about being a bitch to his father.
Yeah.
I felt like this episode, more than any other, is the genesis of that storyline.
You're right.
And while it didn't work that Walt took him to the side and tried to teach him driving, still Walt Jr. Flynn took note of that, and like, my dad's wanting to spend time with me, my mom's just off doing whatever, and I feel like this episode is the start of that storyline. That, why are you being such a bitch to him?
Yeah, for sure. It's sad. I feel bad for Skylar in that way.
Jesse's cover story of why he needs a place to stay. His house is getting bug bombed. The pest exterminators got me on speed dial. I mean, obviously that's not foreshadowing for the Vominos pest.
Wait, does he say that in?
Yeah,
like when he's talking on the phone.
When he's talking to Pete, and when he's talking to his other friend that we never find out.
Oh, he's talking to Pete and his friend. Okay, that makes way more sense than telling Walt that. Yeah.
But is this a case of maybe the strip mining of the past?
Could be.
Or is that just thing? Is that just a thing?
As I recall, listening to the season 5 or season 4 podcasts,
Vominos Pest is season 5.
It's all in season 5?
All in season 5.
Wow, you might be right. Yeah, that thing escalates fast. You're right, because Gus dies at the end of season 4. Yeah, as I recall listening to those podcasts, that was just something that they thought of, like, kind of in the moment, and thought it was cool.
Would be cool, yeah.
If, like, what's the most cool way to hide this operation?
Right.
Let's take it inside people's houses. I don't think that was even them strip mining the past. I think that's a lucky.
Damn, Jim, shutting me down. You could have carried me a little bit for that, but
well, I mean, I don't want to tell people. Yeah, sure, they strip mine that.
That Villigan, what a genius. No. Let's talk about the evolution of Walt versus Jesse fights.
Oh yeah.
The first one in Jesse's upstairs bathroom over Walt catching him smoking versus Walt wanting to flush it in the toilet.
Yeah.
That was pure comedy. This starts off funny, but ends up with Walt getting choked almost, not to death, but till he surrenders. And it's a little bit more poignant at the end. That's one of the things on my rewatch is I'm going to look for these to see if this is a terminal trajectory, or we keep going more and more vicious, less and less comedic. Because one thing, the Cerebral site makes clear is that these fights are all staged and shot broadly the same, with the start and the framing and the finish of them laying on their back, kind of panting. So it's just a kind of this is a physical manifestation of the vicious circle that Hank, goddamn, that Walt and Jesse are in, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And it's also kind of a microcosm of the episode, the series as a whole. It's less and less funny and more serious and dark.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm wondering at the end of this scene where Walt's just like, do it. Does he want Jesse to kill him, or does he feel
that was my next question,
or does he just feel bad and feel like he deserves a beating here?
I kind of wondered if,
because we know later on when he's got the gun to his head about Jane and everything,
yeah,
he's like, just shoot me, kill me. This is over. It's gone too far. I don't feel like he's quite there yet.
That's why then, like, you could talk about the Fly episode where he's trying to think of the perfect time to die. This is something that Walter is not spent just a little bit of time thinking about.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it would be better if you, as my former drug dealing student that I've tried to reach out, maybe if you strangle me to death, my family can cobble together a noble story out of this. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't feel like he's there yet.
No,
I think more what's going through his head is I'm a bad person. I deserve this. I need to be punished in some way. This is how it's going to happen.
Right
Do
on.
it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into some feedback. Actually, there's a point that I thought was interesting off of Reddit attached to this. A guy named Got a Cool Name, spectacular name, by the way, said upon rewatch in season 1 and starting
Wait, are you going to tell me what his name is?
It's Got a Cool Name.
Oh, his name has got a cool name.
Yes.
I thought you were passing judgment on his name.
No,
okay.
I am. It's a cool name.
Yep.
It's accurate. Upon rewatching season 1, starting season 2, I think the shoplifting was used to establish how Skylar deals with Marie in a way that reflects her current state of her marriage. When she confronts her sister, Marie plays ignorant and denies it in a terribly unconvincing way. In episode 204, when Skylar and Walter talk after she starts avoiding him, she demands that he explain his shady behavior, and he does exactly what Marie did, deny any knowledge of anything being wrong at all. From this parallel, we can infer that why Skylar is so good at seeing through Walter's lies through the show. She grew up with a probably compulsively lying, kleptomaniac sister and learned her way around manipulation and mind games while growing up.
Good point.
The only thing it takes away is that Walt's attempts were arguably even more transparent than Marie's.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know. And Marie had the smoking gun of, you fucking stole this tiara. I went back to take it and I almost got arrested as a thief. So I like it, but there's something that's not, I can't put my finger on it, but there's something that's kind of not satisfying about it.
I don't know. I like the idea that, you know, Skylar might have grown up around a bullshitter, and so her bullshit sensor is pretty sensitive.
And that's why maybe she was less inclined to give Walt slack on shady behavior, even with the cancer excuse. Ben R said the episodes Bitten by a Deadbeat and Down are a masterful mindfuck and making the audience sympathize with Walt and feel utterly frustrated with Skylar. Here's this man who's been missing for days, found naked in the supermarket under the spell of a fugue state. His wife brings him home, and she couldn't have possibly been less warm or compassionate towards him. He tries to make her breakfast, and she bolts. Of course, we, the audience, know that Walt is up to something, but for viewers like
phone call.
But for viewers like myself who are rooting for Walt at this stage, you want Skylar to expect that her husband is just ridden with anxiety over being diagnosed with lung cancer, concerned with his family, wants to make things right with them, wants to make them pancakes and omelets, and all she can do is flip out over the fact that he's merely acting strangely, distance herself from him, and then smoke while she's pregnant. Ben has a little bit of a point here, too, that if this fugue state is on the up and up, Walt could be mortified and could be desperate to make up things to his family and could feel genuinely remorseful that he put him through this and completely be mysterious as to why that's happening, except for the second fucking phone call or second phone.
Yeah.
When I first saw this episode, I remember thinking when Skylar just out the driveway that she was going to go down to the local cellular phone hut, get the exact model of Walt's phone and rub it in his face that it wasn't actually the same ringtone.
Yeah. I don't think that would have gotten him to admit anything.
No. And this way is better, but I'm just saying that's when I first watched it. Ben continues, of course, I understand that she's pregnant and largely being driven by her hormones at this stage, but the viewer can't help but feel sympathy for Walt trying to just survive the aftermath of a murderous criminal, keep his family safe, keep them calm, and can't seem to put his wife at ease. Here's an interesting question. If Marie hadn't shoplifted Tiara and put Walt Skylar in that situation, would it have changed her feelings about Walt returning from his fugue state? So he's kind of down with that Reddit theory as well. I think it's a little mistake to pin this at this point all on pregnancy hormones.
Sure.
Like, the evidence just isn't adding up.
That's the thing. Like, the second phone call doesn't make any sense, or the second phone doesn't make any sense. And that has been running around Skylar's head for a while now. I just think, I don't know. Like, I think why this works so well is because we see it from both sides. We know who's actually at fault. Skylar has a right to be suspicious. Walt has a right to deny it. It's like somewhere along the way, both of them have legitimate reasons for doing the things they're doing, and they feel like real people doing real things. And
it would be super cool to see a series from like Skylar's perspective, or to see a series from Walt Jr.'s perspective, knowing only the things that they know.
Yeah, it'd be interesting for sure. But I think like it doesn't make Skylar out to be superhuman, and it doesn't make Walt out to be superhuman. It's just real people dealing with real evidence and real circumstances, and that's kind of where I feel this season and maybe a bit of season 3 also just the wheelhouse that they're in. It's like these real relationship problems with no one wanting to actually give up what's going on.
Sure.
It works so well for me. I don't know.
Elizabeth G says, for spoiler topic, I know I can look on IMDb, but I want to wait and see when he appears. Is Ted about to show up? Isn't Skylar pregnant when they begin sleeping together? I thought she's going to talk to Ted about working again, but she's just roaming the streets to get back at Walt at this episode. Okay, so here's what I know. The episode IFT, I believe, is 302 or 304. We just saw a picture of Ted when Skylar was going through the family photo box, and she kind of reminisced about him fondly.
Yeah.
I feel like that we meet him in this season, but they might not consummate things until the early goings of season 3.
It's possible. I don't know when the birthday.
Because think about how crazy shit gets at the end of this season.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she is fucking Ted during the whole plane crash fiasco.
She could be.
Because I know that Walt is outraged that she's going, splitting their family up during this troubling time or whatever. So there's a lot of stew in there. But yeah, question. And I'm going into this kind of fresh eyes. There's some things I can't help. Like I saw 2 episodes from now, it's Peekaboo. And I'm like, oh shit, I know what's coming up there. But I'm not sure. If I had to lay money, I'd say we see him this season. They have sex early next season.
What do you think? I don't know if there's feedback on this, but what do you think about the opening scene with the pool stuff and there being glasses that look a lot like Walt's glasses? Do you think they did that on purpose to make us question what's going on? I'm wondering
if Walt's glasses don't end up in that pool somehow.
I don't think they do,
because I think he's at his house around. My recollection is he's outside by his pool and looking up when he sees the fireball in the sky.
He does, yes.
So I'm not entirely sure those aren't his glasses, because if those aren't his glasses, fuck you, Villigan. Those are White's glasses.
Yeah, they're Walter White
or a model that looks exactly like them. We're clearly supposed to.
I'm pretty sure his glasses survived this season.
I know he gets a stylish pair eventually.
Yes, eventually, but I don't think it's yet. I think it's.
That's why, again, this teddy bear snuff shit, the second time through, it really gets me riled, because it's such a fucking bait and switch. It is such a bait and switch. I'm glad Villigan got out of his system, because if he hadn't, we might have gotten it's all a dream type of episode or something.
Yeah.
He'd wake up in a bicycle repair shop in Ireland.
Yep.
And Skylar would have red curly hair. And Walter White would be dressed like a leprechaun. And there you go. Matt E said, okay, so now we have a series of emails of people taking exception to my take about the plane crash.
Okay.
Which we really should save a few episodes, but why not? I'll probably get a lot. We need to let a little of this poison out at a time. Matt E says, about the plane crash, you have to remember that the overall Chips to Scarface story arc needed time to evolve, and I believe the plane crash was what the writers came up with to show the consequences of Walt's actions without him directly being responsible, much like Jane's death. Originally, according to the Insider podcast, the scene where Jane dies had Walt purposely pushing her onto her back, knowing she would choke and die. But this was changed because it was felt that Walt couldn't go all the way to cold-blooded murder that early in the series.
Yeah.
Thus, this was a way for Walt to say hello to my little friend without him directly pulling the trigger. I don't feel like in season 2 we needed to see that. I didn't need to see some gunfight by proxy. Like the Jane moment was beautiful and awesome and just right. What we needed to see as Walter White fans at this stage in our evolution. I think the plane wreck just remains gross and over the top to this day.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, from what I read of the emails that came in, a lot of people were, talking about the manifestation of what Walt is doing with his cooking.
Do you want me to get to there's one more email and then we can talk about it if you want to.
Sure.
Josh K said, regarding the plane crash, I think this was the major turning point for Walter White. After accepting his responsibility for this, everything else he does is that much easier to justify. This is the act that made him a mass murderer. From now on, killing 1 or 2 people here and there must not feel like that big of a deal. Imagine if you were responsible, however indirectly, for a tragedy of this magnitude. The guilt would be crippling, but not for Walter White. It reminds me of a Stalin quote: 1 death is a tragedy, 1,000,000 deaths is a statistic. He sees clearly that his actions have deadly repercussions beyond his imagination, but he continues his life of crime anyway. Also, is this the first time he keeps a souvenir?
That quote, I don't think that quote's applicable here, is it? I mean, Stalin's quoting that because the statistic doesn't matter in his eyes. I mean, and maybe that's what Walt's doing here. You know,
I think that's,
like, if this were related more closely to my life, I would give a shit.
Exactly.
But I don't care.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe that quote is apt then, I guess.
He also wonders if this is the first time he keeps a souvenir from someone he kills. It depends. If you want to say that his cutting off the crusts of his sandwich, aka a la Crazy 8, that's, I think, the first souvenir or trophy he takes. So, and then last episode we talked about the grill being metaphorically placed over Walt's face.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Walt doesn't actually kill Tuco. Hank does, and then he takes his literal grill out of his mouth as a souvenir. So, like,
but also,
I don't even know if you
didn't
can count
kill
Tuco's
body count over his entire life was probably much less than 100 people. Where Walt, by the time he's out of the season, inheriting the mantle of Tuco's grill, has killed 2 plane loads full of people.
Yeah, you know what I really want to see is when we get to season 3, because we weren't podcasting then. When we get to season 3, that eyeball comes back. That's the thing that is kind of the totem for Walt going forward as his moral indicator. And I feel like when I rewatch that and really think about what does this mean for Walt in the moment as compared to the plane crash, I feel like that's going to have more significance going in. Yeah,
I just don't know. I feel like that I definitely reject that this is a major turning point in his life. I don't know why, or if I'm justified in feeling that. And I kind of, to me, the eyeball's not as much as a telltale heart that racks him with grief, but just a reminder of, the guilt he should feel.
Yeah, you might be right.
And the fact that his judgment is inescapable. And they kind of reinforce that with Don Eladio's eye medallion as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it's an outside possibility that I watched this show and I watched the plane crash and I appreciate it more. I've seen it twice, but it's probably been years since I've done my last watch of it. But I doubt it, because I'm also a stubborn asshole and I'd be loath to admit I was wrong about something initially. So we'll see.
Yeah, that coffee theory is still going strong.
Yeah, Jim's got the dead man's brew he's still clinging to.
No, I gave that up.
Oh,
sometime in season 5.
When did you renounce it? When?
Didn't I?
I don't think you've ever renounced the coffee theory. Are you renouncing it now?
No, never.
There you go. See? 12/18/2014, still holding strong. That's all I got, man.
Okay.
Pretty good spoiler section.
Yeah.
Pretty good episode.
I feel like that was an
okay podcast.
It was fun, at least for me. So fuck everybody who doesn't like it.
A little rambly.
A little bit.
Little plane crashy on the margins, I'd say.
That's all right. Yeah, we'll be back next Thursday with another one of these things. So if you like Ramblecast,
but get your feedback in early, like by Monday morning early, because we'll be a very compressed schedule next week.
For sure. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. See you next time.
Bye-bye.